Hello guys, welcome to my humble YouTube channel where I bring you fanfiction that will brighten your days. Before we start, a subscribe is greatly appreciated, and don't forget to leave a like and ring the bell icon so you won't miss exciting new fanfiction stories. The Saint of War, Tensura x DxD, by Kischur. Chapter 1. Albania, Shkodra. In streets of Shkodra, a city of the country of Albania, there were many people, be it men, women or even children, just laying in the streets or doing things that would allow them to sustain themselves by any means necessary, be it robbery, or just plain old killing and eating insects. And it was a sight that the great archangel Gabriel was seeing right now, with her standing and walking amongst the street of said city, with her being completely invisible. Gabriel is an extremely beautiful woman, to the point she was called and held as the most beautiful woman in heaven because of her beauty. She has long, beautiful flowing blonde hair and beautiful golden eyes. And being held as the most beautiful woman in heaven, it is only rightly so that she has a body that match or even exceed those of gods of beauty, with her having a perfect hourglass figure, with her having D-cup breast, big buttocks and thighs. With her also wearing a beautiful outfit of white and blue as the primary colors and golden jewelry as well, with the lower part of her outfit being like a tight jeans with it being connected to her heels, and her upper part being like that of a dress of a princess as well. For this people to be so poverty-stricken, what is the leaders of this pantheon is doing? Why aren't they helping the people? Gabriel angrily thought about the pantheon that is predominant in this land, which is the Greek pantheon. In the supernatural world, it is a spoken rule that no outside pantheon or forces are allowed to do whatever they want in other people's territory. Because of that, even the good-natured Gabriel is forced to watch this people suffer, since despite the desire to help was there in her heart, she wasn't going to allow a war to happen between her own family just to save this random people that she hasn't even talked to. She may be nicest of all angels, but she wasn't good enough to sacrifice her own family to a bunch of strangers to a potential war that might happen if she were to interfere with other pantheons' affairs. The best I could only offer you all is my pitiful blessing and hopes that everything would be better in the future, Gabriel thought while giving the people of this country and city her prayers for a better and brighter future in the future. With this, my business in this country is over, Gabriel thought, while also recalling her previous dealings with the Greek pantheon. The heaven faction of the biblical pantheon was currently having dealings with the Greek pantheon. As for what it is a trade contract between pantheon, with the goal in mind to revive trade agreement all those years ago, so that heaven would acquire their precious adamantium to fix the broken god's system. Of course, in this manner, the Greeks also gave their own wants and needs as well, which is very much screwed to be in their favor, and even wanting to have some female angels as well, with the most angel they wanted was Gabriel herself. It was after this that the two side very much fell off, with Michael deciding to just give up on further repairing the god's system, since he refused to give his little sister and the female angels as sex slaves for the Greek pantheon. It was also because of this that Gabriel's opinion of the Greek goddesses has met the negative, especially Artemis herself, since despite saying that she is fighting and killing the perverted men, she didn't reject or offer any comment of the trade needing female angels as well. In fact, Artemis just scoffed and just viewed it as the problems of other pantheon. How hypocritical of you, Artemis. You say that you kill every perverted men in the world, but your own father and brothers are the worst perverts of all. And with what they have done throughout the years, with their constant rape and breaking of couples. Even if they're your own blood relatives, you should have already killed them yourself, or scrutinized them. Gabriel thought angrily at the hypocrite of Artemis. And besides that, there was also another thing that she was angry about the Greek pantheon. Their treatment about humanity as a whole. Despite needing humanity to grow their power and standing, they looked down on humanity. Despite needing them and acquire their vast power to them, they still looked down on them. That was the other reason. Gods are all-powerful creatures because of the faith and recognition that they acquire from humanity. When they are born, they are given an authority, which is a form of mysticism that is higher than magic itself. With this authority they are also given a type of energy superior to that of most types of energy, like mana, demonic or holy, with their energy being called divinity. It was with this two things that they acquire their power, and were instantly ultimate class being right from the get-go. It was because of this fact that the gods themselves viewed themselves as superior to other beings, since with power that is superior to magic and energy source that is superior to the point that they already class as ultimate class. It just motivated them that they are the most powerful race in the universe, and when they showed their power to humans, they also quickly realized another facet of their abilities, their ability to get stronger through faith and the acquiring other forms of authority as well. This fact alone made them see themselves as the perfect race, and with this fact they quickly abused this power to quickly become stronger and stronger, by gaining more and more faith, which grew to the point that the first mythological world war first happened. The mythological world war is a war that was created by various groups of gods that formed groups that is now known as a pantheon, with said groups fighting it out, to see who owned what territory. It was a war that was hard fought, with many gods and warriors dying in the war that lasted for a couple of centuries. But in the end of said war, the Greek pantheon only acquired the ancient Greek, while the biblical pantheon acquired the location for France, Italy and Israel. It was to that point that the gods took a different roads that they decided to walk upon, with many pantheons choosing the path of abusing their power on the human world and deciding to do anything that they wanted. The other pantheons choosing to create rules and regulations, while also not wanting to abuse humanity as well, with the most well-known of this pantheons being the Hindus and Shintos, which respected humanity and decided to teach them as well as blessed them. Then there's the group like the biblical pantheon, which just decided to have as little hands on humanity as possible, with them just interacting as little as possible with humanity, with them just wanting to make humanity self-sufficient. And of course, because of how radically opposite the biblical and Greek pantheon are, and how big of a territory that they hold, the Greeks absolutely loathes the Bible faction. Which is the reason why they very much attacked the biblical pantheon when the second mythological war, which happened and started when the biblical pantheon decided to have a civil war, which was big enough to encompass the entire world, but because of the strength and power of the biblical pantheon, their attempts in acquiring the biblical territories was largely a failure, only acquiring a small piece of land despite the numerous armies and forces that they used to acquire said land. Ever since then, the relationship between the two pantheons has been negative, especially added, with Azazel's fallen angels deciding to run amok throughout Greece and Lucifer's devils capturing and enslaving forest spirits didn't help the situation much better. But still to take it on us. Those two really need to take responsibility, Gabriel thought, but sad knowingly that it wouldn't happen in this day or in the near future. With Azazel's freelance personality that isn't meant to be a faction leader, and the four new Satans being far too inexperienced and far more focused in controlling and acquiring more power and control in their own section of the underworld, they wouldn't have the necessary time and effort to rein in every fallen angel and devil that attacks other pantheon for the hell of it, especially since most, if not all of them are strays themselves as well. I need to return before those bastard gods decided to do something to me, which would cause heaven to fight and start a war over me. I can't let that happen, Gabriel though after clearing her mind. With that she then released her wings to fly back to heaven, but stopped when she heard a certain noise. Crying, crying, It was a certain cry that stopped her, and seeing the humans around her, just ignore said noise, cause her to follow the direction of the noise, while also being careful if it is a potential attack of the Greek pantheon. And so when she has gotten closer, she spotted an abandoned baby that was left in a place of butch of garbage. Seeing this and not sensing any Greek presence, caused her to rush to the baby, and hold the baby in her hands, and seeing that it was a boy caused her to look sadly at the city that she was currently. I see, so some of them even resorted to abandoning their own child to survive in this hellish hellscape. Gabriel thought sadly to what the humans of this city was forced into, with that she then looked at the baby and held him even tighter than before. I can't abandon a baby here, I shall take you in and raise you as my own child from now on. With that Gabriel then flew towards the sky, then looked down to the poverty-stricken city in sadness at the state of the city, and then looked down to the baby that was still crying, then decided to encompass the baby in her holy aura to soothe the baby to get him back to sleep, which worked with him slowly succumbing to the deep expanse of sleep. Good, with this the baby shall be fine now for the journey to heaven. With that Gabriel's wings then started to glow in golden glow, and before anyone knew it, she and the baby in her hands, then sped away and arrived in heaven. It was unknown to Gabriel at this time, but it was this very moment that caused the great heaven faction to become an even greater force in the supernatural world. But because of Gabriel speeding away, she couldn't hear a mechanical voice rang out. Opening square bracket SO grave ULFA tilde MENTO circumflex FI acute MRU grave / REMEO. HAS. Bean COLLC Sedilla TDB THEARHANGLFMEC closing square bracket. Opening square bracket SOULFRA diaresis GMNT. Shal A diaresis VE. Every. Talent. INTH. World AD. BPLAC. INTHEAI circumflex MUMPOTENILANDTALTSNAFHEM closing square bracket. Opening square bracket THESOU diaresis L. Fragments. Beauty. And SEL. Appeal SHALLBTEMXIMMAMA diaresis SWELL closing square bracket. Opening square bracket HERE acute SALL. BNSULFRA grave ENTOFRIMURU-A circumflex MA/E grave SPE acute MGOD. THAT single quote SATHNBTPEFCT closing square bracket. Opening square bracket IIPROMISEDTHAT closing square bracket. Gabriel Pav. It has been 5 years since I took the baby into heaven, and much like I hoped, they very much accepted him as one of their own, and especially with me adopting the boy as my own child. As for the child, I decided to name him as Seal Tempest, which made me also adopt the name of Tempest as well, with my name now being Gabriel Tempest, which signifies my connection to him as my own child as well. As for Seal himself, after getting him to be my child legally, and raising him myself, I was able to quickly realize that Seal is a genius of the highest caliber, with him both being able to walk and talk simple sentences in just about 1 year, and a year later, he was now able to comfortably and talk like any boy of 8 or 9 years old. Of course, this fast-paced progression did cause me to be saddened at the idea that I wouldn't be able to raise and spend time with him like the old days, but it did made me proud and happy of his accomplishments. And before I knew it, after 5 years of taking him in, he was already a child that could do most things himself, and it made things apparent to me that Seal is also an incredibly curious individual. And as a young child, that is even more apparent as well, because of him living in heaven, he naturally came to know of magic and supernatural races, and things like magic and combat as well. And as it turns out, he has something called by Big Brother Michael something like heaven-sent talent, and by his own words, it is an individual that has a millennium worth of talent, which would make them be very talented in most fields or be extremely talented in select fields of study. And with this revelation, it seems that most of the seraphs has decided to teach him a few things, which was something that either they approached him or he approached them, and it seems that they just accepts it and earnestly teach him. Of course, all of their teaching material is stuck into the basic department though, since I don't want my baby to be far too engrossed on his studies. I wanted him to also enjoy his youth and act like a child, and play with others as well. Of course, his study is also important, so I just let them teach him, with me of course being in their own memorized every detail so that I could remember and record everything. Michael taught him basic politics and planning. To this I don't know why Big Brother Michael taught him something like that, but seeing the interested looked in him earnestly working hard to memorize and understand everything, I didn't try to stop him and just let them be. Raphael taught him basic mathematics, science and calculation. To this end, I heavily wanted him to learn, since the understanding of math and science in heaven is vastly superior compared to the rest of the supernatural world and human world, with Raphael herself stating that it would take humanity about 300 years to catch up with heaven in terms of science alone. Of course, in this field, I also helped Raphael teach Seal, since despite me not being as smart as Raphael, I at least am very much with me living for more than 10,000 years after all, so I know quite a bit of math and science myself, so I could confidently say that I could help Raphael in teaching Seal in the basic and intermediate levels. Uriel taught him basic sword skill and basic CQC. To this end, I didn't wanted him to learn this, since it would hurt him and ensure that he would stay in the supernatural world's combat aspects as well, but considering that he begged me to let him learn, I ultimately relented and very much watched over their lessons as well, since out of the current seraphs, I'm the most skilled healer out of them all. Metatron taught him basic holy magic. To this I just accepted it, since basic holy magic doesn't have any form of attack magic and just more so like a support and healing magic. Of course there have been rumors that Metatron has been secretly teaching him something though, but I don't know what it is, since Seal said it was a secret that he has with Metatron and Metatron himself doesn't want to reveal them as well. Sandalphon decided to expand his combat knowledge, and the exploration of weaknesses. To this I also supported, since Seal himself is learning combat, might as well expand said knowledge and skills even further, especially since out of the current seraphs, Sandalphon is by far the most combat pragmatism. Uriel decided to teach him strategical war and the logistics of it all as well. To this Seal just decided to accept it himself, with me coming to learn it when I just so happened to see him taking lessons. Of course I did hurt me that he doesn't want to reveal it to me and that he hid it to me as well, but it did also made me proud that he is flying by his own wings even if a little as well. Ragel taught Seal movement techniques of any kind. By this point, I just accepted everyone that decided to teach him when Ragel expressed desires to teach him. And of course I also loved it that Ragel deciding to teach him since she is the fastest angel after all, and is officially one of the fastest entities in the world as well, and with Seal learning from her movement techniques, I very much loved that, especially since his chances of survival by fleeing a battlefield would increased as well. Remiel taught Seal about other weapons as well, not just swords, with her main subject being knives and spears. Again much like with Uriel, whenever they train, I was always close by them to watch their training and heal them of any injury that they happened to sustain. Raziel didn't taught Seal much, just teaching him normal everyday things, like sports and games, but most importantly common sense as well, especially the unspoken rules of the supernatural world towards the human world. This is done so that he would create unnecessary conflicts with other supernatural old farts that are more traditional base. As for me, I decided to taught him healing and barrier techniques myself, since out of everyone in heaven, I'm by far the best in terms of barrier and healing techniques, so I was very much pleased with Seal asking to teach him healing and barrier techniques. And of course, with all of this people coming and teaching Seal, very much acquired many skills, of course all of them being in the basic level, but still skills that he has mastered and perfected, especially in calculation-based and combat-based, much like right now. Wow! Uriel yelled out surprised at the fact that a 5-year-old child beaten him in sword play. Of course the entire battle was with Uriel being limited to the same strength as Seal, and him being limited to basic sword techniques as well, but still he still have over 1,000 years worth of battle and war experience. The idea of him being defeated by a child is very much not expected. And it seems that many also thought the same, since many angels that was free came to watch the battle between teacher and student, but is surprised by the result of the match. Of course I understood why they were surprised, but I wasn't really that surprised by Ciel's victory, since I very much understood just how much of a genius he truly is, and I came to realize it when the day was over and he learnt everything from every seraphs. He would mediate for a little bit and then practiced once more by himself, and the first time that he did so, I was very surprised by what he did. Unlike most entities that would just learn techniques and skills, and go from there, Seal wasn't like that. He merged his techniques and skills into his own body to making it so that his own body was very used to his movements and techniques, but also merged all of his knowledge and skills into his movements. And in this instances, with his battle with Uriel, he merged his sword, movement, calculation, weakness detection, spacing, and weapon mastery skills into one and moved in such a way that many would mistake him for a master-class fighter. By just merging those basic skills, he already showed prowess comparable to a master-class fighter, so what would happen if he were to learn and master master-class sword techniques or even grandmaster class as well? Single quote. With that, since the posture of my son and Uriel hasn't changed and the various angels around the duel area was just speechless, I stood up and declared the winner of the duel. The winner is Seal Tempest. Quote. When I announced the end of the duel, many angels suddenly poured into Seal asking various questions one another. Seeing this, it did cause me to be jealous because of their sudden closeness to Seal, but I just let it slide for now since he needs to interact with other people as well. With that I then went to Uriel, who saw the direction of the crowd, immediately escaped and joined my side, but despite losing, Uriel took the lose with dignity and just looked at Seal with a proud look and then looked at me. Your son is quite something, Gab. Now I see why you wanted him to see the heavenly library. Nods. That's right. With Ciel's vast talents and learning speed, I sure that he would be able to learn very quickly and would acquire the most out of heaven's library. Yeah, well, Ciel would only be able to enter the library with Michael's permission though, so can't really enter it willy-nilly, especially since Ciel is near in evolving himself as well. To this I could only looked at Ciel and noticed his racial barrier is nearly broken and he would evolve into an enlightened, which is something he needs above all else, since being human he doesn't have something called mana. Mana is something that is common throughout the world, but the only exception to that would be common animals like dogs, cats, deer and other species that is classified in the same category, and the other is humanity. The only way for a human to have mana when they are born, is when they are from a supernatural clan or lineage. Their possessors of sacred gears are the third option, and the much harder one is that they evolved into a Majin or a human that decided to implant themselves a species of supernatural origin, or an enlightened, which is the much more harder one to obtain. Since currently, the only way for Seal to use magic is to manipulate the mana in the atmosphere to use magic. This form of magic is often referred to as the human magic system, which is a system that heavily focused on the manipulation of outside mana sources to become theirs and use magic that way. But this way of magic is very risky, since this all depends in their magic manipulation level if it is advanced enough, but if it's, then their ability to use magic would be gone, and so that is my current goal right now. Since I'm sure that he would want to explore the world, I would at least try to make it as easier as possible, and one of them is to make him into an enlightened human, which would by extension make him into a powerhouse, especially with how huge of a power boost an enlightened become and side benefits as well, and one of them is to acquire mana of their own. If you want to safely explore this world, Seal, you need all the power and knowledge you can get, I thought strongly, while watching him walking towards me while answering every question that was thrown at him. With his progressed, Michael would definitely accept the proposal of him being sent into Heaven's library, Uriel said to me, making me nod, since I do hear Michael sometimes think loudly after all. Well anyway, I will be going back to my duties of training the angels, so I only leave this words, Seal is nearing his evolution, so it is better to push him forward and become an enlightened. With those parting words, he then left, with Seal arriving at my position. Mom, what is Uncle talking to you about? Seal asked, curious on what we were talking about, and since this was his future, I didn't see any reason in hiding it. Your uncle wants me to inform you to achieve the enlightened stage, since that would allow you to acquire mana and let you achieve greater heights of power, I informed him, who only thought long and hard before saying. Quote. I will achieve the enlightened stage later tonight. So you don't have to worry, Mom. Hearing that, I could only hug him with all the affection that I could give him. You don't have to rush it. The enlightened stage is a stepping stone for any human warrior, and not any warrior could reach said state, so don't try to rush it and just enjoy your time as a child, for you can only have childhood after all. I informed him of my views, since the stage of an enlightened human is only the most hardworking and most genius could truly reach. It is a state that is only reached by those that have those two traits. It's because of that the prospect of a 5-year-old child was about to achieve said state as well, despite just being trained in about a single week, and he already mastered the things that was taught to him, and he would have probably mastered the intermediate level as well if I didn't stopped him in just basic though. Quote. Is that so? But I still want to reach it before my birthday to make you proud. Hearing his words, I could help but let out a happy squeal at the cute sight before me. Despite his mature expression and outlook in life, he was still a child, and as a child he is very much embarrassed in showing affections to his mother, which is me. And with how serious he is, and add in his own very beautiful and handsome face, one would get an extremely beautiful handsome man that could enrapture any female in the world. But now said person is showing an embarrassed look on his very beautiful and handsome face, one would get an extremely adorable child that would awaken any motherly instincts in any female out there in the world. With that I then hugged him very tightly. You don't have to do more. You have already me proud by you calling and acknowledging me as your mother. That was the truth. Despite informing him of his true origin, he still acknowledged me as his and only mother in this world. And that alone made me the happiest woman in the universe. Third paw of heaven is a dimension that was created by the biblical God, with it being one of, if not the hardest one to attack and siege, for the entire dimension was constructed into a defensive structure in a war. It is the reason why heaven is still viewed as a top-tier faction by most of the faction, Pantheon heads, since despite losing a lot of their power in the 3 great faction civil war, heaven is still as hard of a defensive structure as always. Heaven is separated into 7 realms, which is collectively called heavens, with a collective number that separates them, and the number is separated by how higher they are in the layer. The first heaven is the home of the exorcist and low-ranking angels, with it also being the main defensive gate of heaven and where most of their defenses are lay and situated. The second heaven is a place of total darkness. It is the place in which the angels go if they either want to look upon the stars, or angels go there as they have sinned. With the angels that was responsible for the Tower of Babel incident was also kept in the second heaven. The third heaven is the place in where the souls that was collected by the angels of heaven collectively go into. It is the place in which the believers of the cross believe to be heaven, a place of complete paradise without the faults and dangers of the mortal world, with it being so vast that it is very much believed to be immeasurable in scale, with the angels only knowing that it is vast enough to be 10x larger than Earth itself. This is also the place in which the tree of life is in. The fourth heaven is where the legend of the Garden of Eden originated from. It is the place in which the first humans, Adam and Eve, was first created and born from, and the place in which the tree of wisdom is placed in. The fifth heaven is the Research Institute of Heaven. It is the place in which is ruled by the head researcher Raphael. It is the place in which the brave saints was created. It is also where the Grigory Institute led by Azazel also first originated from and fell as a fallen angel. The sixth heaven is the home of the seraphs, with it also being called as the home of the seraphs and main HQ of heaven. The seventh heaven is the home of God of the Bible, with it also housing the sacred gear system and the holy system of God as well. And right now in the sixth heaven, Raphael was in her room, getting ready for her teaching materials to Seal, her nephew and crush. Raphael is an stunningly attractive woman with sexy hip-length black hair that has bangs hanging on the right side with two a-hogues, green eyes, a mole under her left eye, red round glasses, one earring on her left ear and a voluptuous figure which is as big, if not even bigger than Gabriel's, with her outfit consists of a green knitted turtleneck, a tight black mini skirt along with her cross-garter motif stockings, and her signature white lab coat. Without Basara, just the sexy Chisato. Realizing what she thought of her precious student, she couldn't help but blushed at that. I shouldn't think of him like that. I need to at least wait for a few more years before it is alright to date him. Raphael thought lovingly, at the notion of being his, sleeping on his chest in bed, resting her head on his shoulders, cooking together, and as Raphael thought longer, the redder and redder her face becomes, and squeals. He's still far too young for those, Raphael, she said to herself, while thinking of starting and having a family with him, and only way for one to start one would be two. With that, Raphael's head then exploded in embarrassment, causing her to stop her thoughts and look down at the ground. But before she could go back to her fantasies, she stopped to think about the hurdles for said fantasy to come true, and those were her competition. Gabriel wouldn't really mind me being his wife. Right. Well, knowing her, she should support me the most, with me being very responsible after all, so getting her approval is already solved. Now the problem would be Ciel's loved itself. Especially the competition for said loved. Raphael was confident that she would acquire Gabriel's approval, since the idea of incest in heaven wasn't really there, since the first humans, Adam and Eve, are in a way siblings, or came from the same thing, so they are technically doing incest, and since all of humanity came from those two, then every human is doing incest themselves. So the angels wouldn't really see any problems with this arrangement, since they were very much fine with it, and as for Ciel's loved, she could just develop it as they bond together and interact with each other as student and teacher. But the main problem would be other girls. With Ciel's excellence and beauty, many girls would obviously be very attracted to him, especially with his own kind, composed and mature personality. Any woman would definitely want that in a partner, and with him being such a handsome man, he would definitely get a girl or two. I need to be the first one and established my dominance. Single quote. Raphael thought, since she long since abandoned the hope that she would be the only one to have Ciel for herself, so she just wanted to be the first wife at least, and she wouldn't allow anyone but her for said position. Knock. Raphael. I'm here, can I come in? Quote. Raphael, hearing Ciel's words and knocked, caused her to look at the door and then to her current figure to see if there was something wrong, and seeing nothing, she then looked back to the door and said, "It's good, you can come in." With that, the door then opened, revealing Ciel coming in the door, and stopping and bowing down to me in a show of respect, which caused me to pout a little at the formal way he greeted me. Geez. I already said that he should greet me like Gabriel more. If this continues, he would just see me as his teacher. I need to hopefully change that, she thought, planning for her future. Good afternoon, Raphael. Good afternoon to Ciel. Just take the seat in front of me and let's start our lessons. With that, Raphael then sat down to a chair, with there being a table and another chair across from her, and several books in the table as well. Not much compared to before though, but that just shows his sheer talents though for him to perfectly learn and master the basic of science and math rather quickly. Raphael thought in awe at the sheer talent that the boy showed. Well, after this, he would very much go to the library. This must be the reason why Michael wanted me to pass him information about evolution as well. Raphael thought further at two of the books in the table that wasn't related to science or math, just the evolutionary path of humanity. Raphael, what are we going to learn now? Seal asked, curious on what he would learn today. Because of him very much learning, he is in the last days of being taught the basic of things and constantly hearing the word heaven's library. He figured it was nearing his time to enter said legendary library. Raphael, hearing her precious crush question, just curiously looked at her table, and then decided to start with evolution now, since she knew that Seal very much already mastered the very basics of her studies anyways. We shall be learning about evolution today, Seal. So can you tell me the things that you know about it? From the things that I heard from Mother. Evolution is the state in which the physical form and species of a race evolves into a higher life form, Seal answered from the things that was said by Gabriel. Raphael, hearing that, could only hum in response, which neither gave anyway if he was wrong or correct at his words. Well, Gabriel is certainly right about what she said, with a few exceptions. For example, one's race wouldn't really change if they evolved. They are still called what their race is. Evolution is just another step forward, or going up in the ladder of evolution, so they're still the same. And not all evolution would make the person evolved into a higher life form as well. It's just mostly known as evolving into a higher one. There are still chances in which they evolved the wrong way, Raphael said while correcting only two things. Seal, hearing this, could only nod at her words while categorizing and fixing his own mistake as well and changing it into the new information that he got. Then, Seal, what may be the evolutionary path for humanity? It would be the Majin or an enlightened. Nod, good, you're correct. The evolutionary path for humanity is generally thought of as those two, with the enlightened being viewed as the correct way for humanity to evolve, while also being seen as the superior one out of the two as well. Humanity has two evolution, with enlightened being the next one to normal humans and the superior one being the saint stage as well. And despite only having two evolutions, those two evolutions are the only evolutions that grants a power boost and having the highest ceiling as well, with the peak of power of the enlightened being seen to be about peak Satan class or even low super class. Hearing that, Seal was surprised by the incredibly high ceiling of power that it grants the users, which is something that gives the person an incredibly edge in training, since the higher the ceiling of power, the easier it is to train to get stronger. Since the closer one is to one's ceiling of power, the lower and lower the return of wields to their training become, until it very much stopped progressing from there on after. As for Seal himself, he already knew he is approaching said stopping point, since from what he heard from Gabriel, he is what would be classified as a high-class human, which is the equivalent to a high-class devil. And Raphael perfectly sense it as well. Well, despite having the capabilities of a high class, with his skills and experience in fighting Uriel, he could very well fight a low or mid-ultimate class devil. Raphael could very well sense it, not through fighting him or seeing him in action, but by the sheer vibe that he released and perfect postures that he released. Raphael, how does one evolve into an enlightened? Raphael, hearing that, could only think for a moment, and then answered. There are two things one need in order for one to evolve. The first is that they need to be nearing their ceiling of power, and the second thing is that they need to break down their mental barriers to evolve. It's the reason why most entities that are evolved are very much calm in battle. Of course, they could still be quite arrogant and boisterous though, but it is a general consensus that those that have evolved even ones would largely fight even if it's life on the line though. Seal, hearing that, just looked at his hands for a moment and then extended outwardly, and before Raphael could say anything, a bunch of mana then moved and went into his hand, which then formed into a sword, which surprised Raphael a little bit, and with that Seal then stood up and went to the middle of the room, with Raphael just looking at him in curiosity, but not stopping him. With that Seal then moved, and in the series of movements with the blade, Raphael could only look on in awe at the sword movements and the sheer precision that he showed. Single quote dot dot. Is he actually only able to use basic swordsmanship? I know that Uriel and Remiel said that those that mastered the basics could show swordsmanship level way past their swordsmanship. But for Seal, who only trained in the art of the sword for a little over 5 days, for him to show such beautiful and precise swordplay. It truly is beautiful, Raphael thought while focusing her all in the movements of the sword. It was such a beautiful sight it caused her to cry a little at the sheer beauty of the swordplay before her. Ciel's swordplay was fast, but not too fast to the point of it being seen as him throwing his all to swing the sword. It was just right, with the right amount of strength and precious. Throughout her 1,000 years of battle experience, Raphael throughout all of that, didn't see much in the beauty of swordplay. To her it was always been practicality above all else, the same for everyone as well. But seeing this level of swordplay that bordered on the limits of basic swordsmanship and approaching the true master level of swordsmanship. It was practical, with it being the combination of every basic sword play and joined together to build a beautiful pattern of sword strikes, jabs and slashes, with all combinations that he joined together being more and more practical and beautiful than the last. And before she knew it, Seal swang his final strike, and a pillar of pure white shot out of his body completely surrounding him. Not just Raphael, but everyone in heaven and every layer of heaven saw the pillar of light that was shot out from Raphael's room, and upon seeing it, it caused them to look on upon it in a hint of surprise, especially the archangels as well. You got to be kidding me, disbelief. Quote dot dot. For him to be able to evolve into an enlightened, despite it taking years of training normally, and him reaching it in a less of a week's time, it's absurd how talented he truly is, ah. Quote dot dot dot. Shocked. Woo. Yeah. That's my son right there. Joy. And, why is it that he has all that talent? It should have been me. Not him. Jealously. It was the feelings of those that witnessed said event. And for Raphael herself, she couldn't help but be in awe and blushed as well, since when the pillar of tower disappeared, it revealed a naked Seal with his entire body releasing steam suggesting that he is currently extremely hot, which is easily seen with the ground before him was melting away with the touch of his skin. It seems that I did it. Raphael hearing that then started to scan his entire body, and then felt it. There was now mana inside Seal now, with it being very potent, to the point of it being compared to that of coal and diamond. If coal is the average then diamond would be where Seal is currently in, which caused her to question it. The idea of one's magical energy potency and quality changing into a higher status isn't rare. In fact it's common and is regarded as a natural occurrence, with it being seen as one of the necessary steps if one has successfully evolved into a higher life form. But in Ciel's case though, is it even possible for one to acquire such large amounts of magical energy and potency right from the get-go? Single quote. Even with Raphael's 1,000 years of experience, she has been able to see numerous evolutions over time, with her also experiencing it as well. But despite living for that long, this was the first time that she saw such a big increase. Ciel's current strength is unknown to Raphael, but even she knows that he is at least ultimate class level. As for his mana levels it is now upper mid to low high class now as well. And for Raphael she knew what Ciel would be doing now, he needs to get to the library. In the meeting place for the 4 great seraphs, the current rulers of heaven which are Michael, Gabriel, Uriel and Raphael was currently having about a meeting about Ciel's progression in his training. Michael has the appearance of a handsome-looking man with long blonde hair and green eyes. Like Gabriel, he has 12 wings growing from his back, and unlike other angels whose wings are white, his wings are colored gold, further symbolizing his position as the former leader. He wears a red robe with a gold cross on the front of his white alb. He has golden shoulder plates with a white sash and a golden halo set above his head. So we're all in agreement about Ciel entering heaven's library. Michael asked once more. Despite already knowing their answer, he just asked it in a form of formality. Yeah, that little sucker is talented, especially reading books and manuals. He could master them very quickly. That's how he did it with the basics of swordsmanship after all, with my training with him just being more based on him being able to execute each movements and moves in the right way and give him some form of experience in battle as well. Uriel said, completely agreeing with Ciel going to the library to learn in it, with him seeing that it would further unlock more of his potential. Uriel is a handsome man that has long, curly silver hair with blue eyes. He possesses 5 sets of angel wings. He is seen to have a very muscular build. He wears a robe with several buttons along, striped pants and sandals. I agree as well. With his talents, he could very well learn more in the library than with us. So I support it as well. Raphael gave her 2 cents as well, while trying to sound like she wasn't giving a tone similar to how a CEO is giving chances and opportunities to her newest employee to be closed with. Of course, the 2 men instantly saw through it, and just shot her a deadpan look, with Gabriel being the only one completely oblivious of that fact. Well, I wouldn't really object to it, and besides, with his talents, he could potentially also acquire a grace as well. Hearing her words, it caused the 3 to think as well. Graces is the ability of the Heaven faction and why they are so feared in the first place, and in truth it is also the true name of the noble devil abilities as well. Such things like destruction, worthless, time, etc., etc. All of those were all graces originally, with the progenitor of each clan being a former seraph, with them now being devils and passed on their descendant. And of course, the ones that made said graces is the biblical God, and according to him there are an almost infinite amount of graces, since what the graces are the expressions of the soul, with the only thing that the grace does is to expression it to the real world and have its effects be shown in reality. As there are numerous souls and all of them not being the same, sure some of them may look the same, but there aren't one-to-one. For that reason some graces may look the same to other graces, but how they operate and limitations may be different as well. Michael, hearing his sister's words, thought about it. Well, since he is quite surprising young man, he would very much might be the first human to ever acquire a grace as well. Uriel said, not even seeing the idea as an absurd one as well. The only way for one to ever acquire a grace is to go to the Heavens Library and learn and master holy magic in under 2 months. Going outside said library would now also invalidate one's ability to ever acquire, and going past the 2-month mark will also invalidate said claim ever again as well. For graces are the height of holy magic at its apex, and because of that, noble devil abilities are also weakened as well since they're holy magic after all. Oh, that would be most excellent. I shall tell Seal the good news now. With that, Gabriel then left the meeting, and seeing that Michael could only let out a sigh in amusement and then waved his hand to them. Meeting adjourned. Tell this to Seal as well, he has 5 years to have the library to himself. With that, the 2 seraphs then bowed down to their older brother and left, leaving Michael all to himself in the lonely meeting room. With that, he then released his 12 wings to be shown in the world. Father, is this truly the right thing to do? Michael thought before standing up and going to a window and looking down at the 3rd and 4th layers of heaven. Is my prophecy truly right? Is Seal meant to eat the fruits in the tree of life and tree of wisdom? And drink the holy grail? In truth, Michael was hesitate in giving him said fruits, on what the fruits does is to grant immense power to the user. The fruit in the tree of life would grant the eater divinity, with it more like getting the biblical God's version of divinity. The fruit in the tree of wisdom on the other hand would grant the user immense knowledge in most things, but especially the complete mastery of holy magic as a whole. The Holy Grail, in which contained the holy water that Jesus Christ himself made with his own blood, sweat and tears, it grant the drinker immense boost in physique and cleaner and more purified soul. Of course, Michael himself doesn't really mind giving it to him, but if the only thing it grants is only benefits, then many angels would have partaken in eating and drink said items, but it does have weaknesses, are more like warnings though. If one were to eat the fruit of the tree of life, they need to be of pure mind, with their thoughts not being clouded by any form of evil or temptation. If they do, even if it's the tiniest amount, they will be instantly killed and their soul would straight away go to purgatory. If one were to eat the fruit of wisdom, their actions must be pure and good, with them not being allowed to do any heinous actions in their life, and if they even think about it for a single second, they instantly die and go to purgatory. If one were to drink the Holy Grail, their souls must be pure without any sort of imperfection, and if there is, then their entire soul would go to purgatory as well. It was this punishments that Michael feared it the most, since he could no longer see past said point in him just eating it and not seeing the effects. He doesn't know what would happen, would he survive or would he die from there? After all, he cared for him as like a nephew to him, he would dot on him for as long as he liked, he would give him everything if it would be for his good in the world, but I don't want to see you die because of my mistake of giving you those 3 items. After all, they would be sad if that were to happen, Michael thought before returning to his station, And before he could leave the room, he stopped like a machine being forced stopped, and with that a few words then entered his mind forcefully. Opening square bracket IE acute L. THEVOICOFTHE acute ENTRE circumflex MULTIVE grave RSE. ORRARCHA diaresis NGL. Michael TO diaresis FEE circumflex DTHESO circumflex UFAGMENTOFTHESPRMGD /RIMRTEMPST. THEFRU grave IT single quote SOFTETO grave FI acute FEANDISOM. ANDHDIKTHEWATESOFTHO acute YRA diaresis IL closing square bracket. Yes, I Archangel Michael shall feed seal Tempest the fruits of the tree of life and wisdom, and digest it with the waters of the Holy Grail. Opening square bracket GOO diaresis D. Feruel TA grave ITOR closing square